District Board of Directors. It's April 6th, 2023 at 7:32 p.m. Could we have a roll call, please?
Director Decker.
Here.
Director Slater-Carter.
Present.
Director Boyd.
Here.
Director Sofke.
Here.
Director Young.
Here.
Okay.
All directors present this evening.
All right. Well, let's see. Tonight for my president's statement, I'm just going to note that the latest district newsletter has gone out, and if you haven't taken the time to read it, it's always got good things in there. We're going to talk tonight about one item that it goes into some detail on, and that is how we as an agency are going to be going to district elections. We'll talk about that more later in the meeting, but everyone should have that good-looking newsletter at hand, and in case you can't find it, you can find it at our website, I believe.
Correct.
Okay.
It's already up on the website.
Okay, great. I took a flyer. I figured it must be. Took a flyer on the flyer. So, all right. Do we have any public comment for items that are not on tonight's agenda?
Yes. I have 2 comments.
Okay, let's start with Clemens, and then I see we'll also go to Greg.
So my first comment is that we are actually invited to an open house. Our friends at PCTV have scheduled an open house for Saturday the 15th, and that is at 580 Crespi Drive, and it's from 1 to 5 p.m. And anyone interested can take a tour and check out their facilities. The second announcement is rather sad. We've all worked together with Tim Monahan from SRT, who passed 2 days ago. He designed many of the features that we implemented in this water system here, and was really a wonderful person to work with. I think everybody who saw presentations that he made or got to know him a little bit will remember how he was a very soft-spoken, very friendly person, and we definitely miss him here at MWSD.
Oh, very sad. Did he die unexpectedly?
No, after a longer sickness.
I wasn't aware that he was ill. It's a sore loss. Tim was a calming, very professional presence in some really difficult, challenging times, especially at SAM. I recall it was very normal for conditions that could have been challenging. Tim was just a very calming presence, and was always very well received. And it was good to be able to work with him. And I'm really sorry to hear about this loss.
Condolences to his family and to SRT.
Thank you.
Catherine.
I'd like to add, I knew him through MWSD and his work at SAM. He was creative, he was professional, he was always enjoyed teaching people and learning from other people. He was I think his strength as an engineer came from his ability to listen and analyze and then to come up with creative problem solving. And he was just so incredibly nice. He will be missed, and my condolences to SRT and to his family. I know everybody there was very fond of him. And frankly, it's a big loss for Sam because he came up with so many, and for MWSD because he came up with so many good solutions.
Well, this has not been a good year for. I'll say this: we've been blessed to work with some extraordinary people, and let this be a reminder. Okay, Greg, I see your hand.
Yeah, thanks, Scott. I'm wondering what's been happening with the rate study. I was waiting for financial projections showing future reserves and other stuff. The last meeting I didn't attend. It seemed like it was all closed. And so I'm wondering where the financial analysis to support the rate increase is. And I didn't see it on the agenda.
So, I mean, ultimately, the actual document and presentation will be delivered at the public hearing on May 18th. No, sorry, May 8th. I think it is.
Will we have a look over a rate thing tonight?
We're looking at the budget tonight.
Okay, so nothing tonight. Okay.
Yeah, well, what we did previously was discuss what is leading up to the May 8th meeting. But basically, it was giving some direction, getting some feedback to to the people who would be doing the analysis, so they would have some of our input as they went. So we should see some comeback on that on May 8th.
We are not ready yet. We have not received the data that we need to present.
Okay, do I see any other? I don't see any other hands. Going once, going twice. Okay, let's go to the consent agenda. Do any directors want to pull any items for discussion? And if not, can I have a motion to approve?
I'll make the motion.
I'll send it.
So it's been moved and seconded to approve the consent agenda. We're all in person tonight. So can I have the ayes? All in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries 5-0. Thank you. Let's do, there's no old business tonight. New business. Item 1, review and possible action concerning draft water and sewer budget.
Yeah, thank you. So every year we bring the budget in a very preliminary form to this board before we start working with the finance committee on it. And
Can we get Clemens a better microphone?
yeah, let me try to do what I said everybody should do. Okay. So we bring this budget every year in a very preliminary form to the board, just so that, initial requests can be made, essentially alerting everybody that, where we are in this process. The budget is nowhere near to be ready, and, the bottom numbers are, completely off, but we're not there where they're supposed to be. But we do this every year just to get the input from the directors and give them a little bit of an overview where we are in this process. So, for example, we can add another month's worth of financial data so that we get better projections. The sewer service charges need to be calculated. The CIPs are still in preparation. So all of these things need to be still.
And also, we haven't seen our audit yet.
Our audit is late. We knew that it would be late this year, but we're very disappointed how late it is. That said, at the next meeting, we'll actually look at hiring a new auditor for the next process. I also want to take the opportunity to correct what I just said. The public hearing for the rates is going to be on May 4th. With that, I want to hand this over to Peter Medina, who's very much involved in the budget preparation. And Peter, maybe you can tell us a little bit about this year's budget process and where we are. I have the budget ready in case we need to share it on screen, the draft budget.
Yes, could you please? Sure.
Okay, it's visible? Yeah.
All right, I can see. Okay, hold on. Well, Clement started off really kind of hitting over the broad points. We have begun modeling, but there are some fairly significant items which we cannot move forward on. CIP being the largest piece. For personnel, we're currently modeling using a 5% cost of living adjustment. Those are the two larger points for the expense side of it. For both water and sewer, we have not modeled anything larger than a flat increase from the revenue standpoint. But we've gone through all the operational expenses. Debt we are good on. So we have the ammo schedules going throughout the lifetime of the debt. So those are all input. But as Clement said, it's just, we've met. We're going to continue to work on it with the finance committee to also get input from others. So if there's any questions, please let me know. Or if there's any requests, please let Clement or I know. But like I said, we're missing those pretty significant items. More will get filled in the next month or so. But yeah, with the best data that we have, that is what you're looking at now. Any questions?
My only question is, since I'm new on this budget, I don't know if you're the one that put it together, if it came from Clemens originally, but there's a couple acronyms that I don't know what they mean. So can you put a little chart at the bottom when you get down to the May 4th meeting budget so I can know what the heck it is?
Yes. Yeah. During that time, maybe we can talk offline and see which ones that you have questions on. I'd be happy to either include a glossary, but really maybe just kind of discuss those with you, just so that you're up to speed with some of the terminology that's being thrown around.
Well, my thought is, if I'm not up to speed, probably the public isn't either. So even if you just had a little chart at the bottom for a cheat sheet, that would help me and maybe others. Thank you.
Do any terms jump out, like some examples?
Well, let me look really quick.
I'm thinking like CIP is one of those.
I knew capital improvement, but there's others. It was further down in the list.
Geo bonds, perhaps?
No, I knew that. I don't know what a PFP pass-through is, or the other pass-throughs, those kind of things. I looked up LAIF, but some things you can't find on Google. So,
Yeah.
Valid point. Yes.
That gives
Absolutely.
something to work at, Peter.
Yes. No. You look through and you kind of get dated after a number of years saying, okay, yeah, these are just the terms that we all use. So no, absolutely. Including those and including a glossary of sorts is very doable.
Thank you.
May I add? Insofar as there's some chance to improve the spreadsheets and add clarification without really adding too much work, may I ask that the same spreadsheet be reposted, but now sorted according to number? So the highest expenses and the next highest, and cost, the same thing. That way, it's easy to eyeball how big things are relative to each other. Because right now, all the numbers are scrambled with no particular numerical sorting. I don't think that would take much time to do, and I think it would make it much easier to read. Well, the budget is really sorted
By
according to
category.
groups of expenses. And
Of course.
the expenses are grouped in a way so that,
Of course, I'm not saying not to do that, but spreadsheets can be duplicated. You can make a second version of the same spreadsheet with all of the same information, but now sorted in such a way that you can eyeball it, et cetera, et cetera. So I'm asking for the best of both worlds. I'm not asking to actually limit.
Okay, Peter? So that should be doable, right?
Yes. Yes.
You want to split up the water and sewer?
I'm not accustomed enough to these to really know how I want it split up. What I do know is it's much easier to understand balances of numbers if there's some way of having them ordered quantitatively. And I'm sure whoever's putting this together would know what that would look like.
Well, you can have
I'll leave it to them.
you can have just like they do at SAM. we have a graph that shows exactly 70% of our expenses are going to personnel, 15% go to administration, so many percent go here. We have done that.
I like a pie chart.
Yeah,
Pie
pie charts and things like those are useful, and I actually love any good infographics. The particular thing I'm thinking here, it strikes me as something so dead easy it would take an extra 5 minutes. And that is to make a copy of the spreadsheet version B, and just do a column sort. Sort by column whatever, quantitative, and now all the rows are just rearranged. Now people can look at that or not. But it's much easier to look up what's what. But whoever is putting this together will know how to do this.
But you're mostly concerned about knowing which our highest expenses are and what the lower expenses are, isn't it?
I like being able to compare things to other things. I just like diving and wandering through data and sort of looking at stuff. And so, yes, that's one of the things I might be doing. Another thing is just how does this compare to others, something else that seems related.
I think you should have a word with Peter Medina to make sure that he is doing that, what you were asking for.
Oh.
Catherine?
Well, I don't understand what it is you want sorted to by size. You want it the percent of budget? Do you want? Could I finish?
Oh, yeah.
Thank you. Do you want it by the dollar amount? You want it by the increase or the decrease over the last several years? You want it projected? Do you want it sorted by projected as a percent of budget? There's so many different ways to sort it. So I'm
That's why I
curious.
suggest you should talk to Peter and see what he wants.
Off the cuff, I would say the dollar amount is of those, all metrics are good. But the best single metric of those is the dollar amount, because it's a bottom line kind of thing. But other than that, this is philosophy we can talk about elsewhere.
I'm still confused.
Just
because-
expenses?
So let's
Let's do it off.
I think this goes into the kind of detail that needs to
Guys.
go elsewhere.
I'm sorry, we're talking over each other, and we do have people on remote, and that is impossible to follow remotely. So Catherine had the floor.
Thank you. I'm looking at the bottom of each grouping, and frankly, they also need to be sorted among the grouping. For instance, you want your operation expenses perhaps by whatever parameter sorted. You also want your operating revenues sorted, but you certainly don't want them mixed up just because one has a bigger number than the other.
Oh, yes.
So I think it would be better if maybe you worked with Peter so that you could get this done in a way that makes sense to you.
Sure.
Okay.
That Peter, right?
All right. Peter, did you have anything else on this topic, or are we ready to go into the next one?
No, this is just brought to you. It's more of a time matter as far as part of the process. This gets referred back to the finance committee so we can have further discussions. And really that's the first draft. We know where the holes are. But we can model with just the data that we have. There are very few completely missing items. They're just something that have not really been tightened up as best they can with the limited data that we're working with. So we still have some time, but we are on track.
Okay. Well, I'll just observe. Thank you for that. I'll observe. I find first off, when I first started learning about these budgets, I didn't find any substitute for just reading every line and taking notes on the things that I didn't understand and then asking questions about those. So I asked a lot of questions early on. And what I'm spending time on now when I'm looking at these, and I appreciate having it early, this is very helpful. I'm looking for the variance column. I do skim for the big items and the big variance dollar amounts. But things where we've made an estimate or we've budgeted a certain amount or it changed substantially one way or another over the previous year, there's always a story. And those are really good for board members to understand. Because, the big dollar amount items may not be where our spending priorities are more greatly affected. Some of those are pretty cut and dry and don't see a lot of variation. But like for me at home, my budget is most impacted by the small checks. I look over a month's checks and I'm like, where's the big one? Because it added up to a big number and it's all the small ones. So that's why I really urge looking at every line. And Peter, I know you do it. Catherine?
Thank you. Something you may want to go to, and the public, I would recommend that you go to this as well. We have a resource that we pay for, and it's accessible from the website called OpenGov. You can fool around with all the numbers. You can compare our district to other similar kinds of districts. It has a wealth of information, and it's up to date, I believe, yes?
Yes.
And Peter and Clemens have been working on this to make sure of that. And it's a computer app. There are videos. You can watch a video for an introduction to it. You can see other financial data. And you can see audits from all recent years. You can see compensation. You can see budget. You can see sewer service charges. You can see rates. All kinds of information. And you, so I would think that that may answer some of your questions.
Mm-hmm. Sid?
Really quick question, and I don't see it on here, but it might be here, called something else. I did look on the agenda for tonight, and you were talking about having an ad hoc committee for the later in the year celebration of the district's anniversary. So how would you categorize that expense, or is it not on here yet?
No,
We have not. Sorry.
Oh, there's two.
we can add some funds to it.
Well, where would I look if I was just going to see it now? It's probably not here yet, right?
We have not budgeted for it, no.
Okay, thanks.
No,
And it would probably be
Called.
naturally categorized with public relations.
Okay.
Somewhere in the
So if I could have the word, I'm realizing I usually actually have a pre-meeting with our newer board members, and this time skipped it because I thought the items on the agenda are actually not worth meeting, but I'm realizing that's not the case. So I suggest that we actually meet, Bill and Sid, that we meet next week if you guys have a chance, because reading a budget takes experience, and it is different from agency to agency, and each budget looks a little bit different, and and it's like Scott says, there's no way around understanding certain things and having a background knowledge. Without that, it is extremely difficult to read the budget. So I'm happy to sit down with you guys and go through this thing line by line, or answer questions that you guys have, so that we, that you guys are better prepared to make that decision when we bring it up to a vote.
Works for me.
I appreciate it because I was without internet this week and I only saw the budget today. I didn't want to have to call you today and bother you to ask, but thank you.
Well, the good news is this is
Preliminary.
something that Clemens and team have been working on getting to us early every year, and so we have time. So the fact that it stirred interest and is raising lots of questions, mission accomplished. This is good. So
Yes.
Thank you so much.
Yes, say something.
yes, Peter.
Whenever I sign checks, and I've been doing this now since 2019, I keep a spreadsheet as to who is being paid and how much it is. And then later on in the finance committee, I find out under what category do these people that we pay to fall,
Yeah.
and what is the budget number in our budget, and how much have I signed checks for to the people who are falling in particular category.
Right.
And
So you
that
know your
has been helpful
allocations.
during the finance committee meetings to see if the number that we see here in the budget is realistic. Because after all, we go by the checks that we issue, and we go by who we paid and who we didn't pay. And since we now have that spreadsheet over the last 3 years, for 4 years, we get more and more certain about the numbers coming up in the budget simply by virtue of knowing what we've done the last 4 years.
Because that's a moving target anyway, as you're adding checks.
As we are paying in each
Yeah,
category,
right.
we all of a sudden notice a big jump in one category, and then we say, "Hey, we paid the garden $1,200 last month. Why are we paying him $1,600 this month?"
Yeah.
And then the issue comes to the fore, and then we find out what went where or what went wrong, or we get an explanation as to the reason.
Thank
So
you.
that's how we
Yeah,
follow up.
I want to commend Peter for doing that. It's essentially a budget control, and I don't think that many agencies have the luxury of having that second budget control. So really appreciate that, Peter. It has helped us in the past, and it's a very good tool that you're bringing to the table there.
Yeah, I will note that this has a sort order on it now, and it's by grouping, but it is sorted by GL code and the general ledger accounts. And this is the kind of thing that kind of grows on you after a while. And like you asked where the budget might be for an event, and I'm like, well, that's going to be in the top of operating expenses. It's going to be somewhere near the top because that's where that would normally land. You'll develop that familiarity, but it's good to ask. It's really good to ask, because we're an asking kind of board. So, all right. Well, thank you very much, Peter and Clemens, for having this to us today. And let's go on to, if we're ready.
One quick question.
All right.
And my concern is with listening to the economic news and reading some of this. What are we planning for? Clearly, we're planning for increases in our rates to be able to meet our needs, but we have we're still trying to figure out how and when we're going to pay for the SAM force main in Montara that broke. We still don't have a handle on the numbers at SAM. We're trying to put them all together, but there are some differing points of view between Half Moon Bay and Montara and Grenada. Montara and Grenada are on the same page, but so the questions I have is, what are we going to be doing in this upcoming budget to do that? For those who don't know, we knew that these pipes needed some sort of repair. We stalled. We decided to take a much closer look at the pipes, and they were holding together, and then we had the water hammer or some kind of shock to the system that caused a major leak of 4 million gallons. For those who can do the math, at $10 a gallon, 4 million gallons, we're looking at $40 million in fines, essentially, that we may or may not be able to negotiate given the history of this project. My opinion and the direction I have taken based on the discussions about this subject here in our public meetings is that MWSD wants to keep the costs down and to get the project done before the costs continue to go up. And that's apparently Grenada's position too. But I don't know where, I'm curious how we're going to put this in to our budget, assuming because even if we get an extension with the ERF group, the Environmental Resource something or other, we would only get a 3-year extension on getting this project done. And that's a lot of money to come up with over the next few years.
Good question.
So that's, I'm not asking you to answer it now, but maybe you could bring it up at our next meeting. Clearly Sam will have a little bit more information too. I have suggested, for instance, that instead of making any changes, and folks who read the paper may have noticed, I thought it was just a simple repair, and somehow into the request for proposal came in changes that were going to be made to this pipeline system that I, in talking to others, don't believe need to be made. It's a perfectly fine little system for a perfectly wonderful little community. And so where am I going with this? What I'm trying to say is Montara and Granada want to keep the cost as low as possible, but I'm not sure we'll be able to do that given other regulatory agencies as well as other issues with the pipe itself. So.
Two things. I think we should rally to make that a like-for-like repair and not, enhance it with whoever decided to do that. I could imagine who it was, and then my second comment is, if we need to raise more revenue, I think we should sooner than later look at connection fees, because on next coming agenda for the CDRC, there's going to be an apartment complex on Etheldor, and last week, or was it earlier this week? I'm lost. They had one for an in-person only meeting that wasn't videotaped for the units on Etheldor in the 700 block. That's going to be on a 5,000 square foot lot with a single family home and 2 ADUs, a J ADU and a regular ADU.
What are those? For those who
Oh, I'm sorry. Yeah, an acronym. An accessory dwelling unit can be built onto any single family home, either attached or detached. And a J ADU is just a smaller version of the same, but this particular property owner wants to build a 2-story single family home on top of 2 ADUs, one J ADU, junior ADU, and one standard ADU, and a 12-foot high ceiling garage as well. So it's basically 3 units going in with a lot of parking spaces, and they had to continue it. But, I don't think we have anything in our budget for a single family lot being developed with 3 units on it. So maybe we should look at our connection fees. Same thing with the the apartment complex that they want to put. I think it's at Etheldor in California. But those are just 2 that I know of. The county is just giving out permits right and left for single family homes around my neighborhood, and there's probably going to be more. But I think we should look at it instead of kicking it down the road. We can get some revenue now. That's my thought. For the new joiners.
Thank you, Sid. All right. Anything else on this topic? Okay. Let's move then to new business item 2, review and possible action concerning Montara Water and Sanitary District 65-year anniversary.
All right, thank you, Scott. Yeah, so 65 years ago, September 1958, our sewer system was, or our sewer district was founded. In 2003, so that's exactly 20 years ago, we actually acquired the water system. So I think that's actually, that's the round number that I think is worth celebrating, the 20-year water anniversary. But it falls together with the 65-year district anniversary. And so I think it's worth putting a celebration together. And I'm looking for some help. I'm actually going to be traveling this summer a little bit, so taking my vacation in the summertime. So if we want something done, let's say by September, would be great to have some help. Many organizing the place. Of course, our staff is also here. We can all work together, but it would be good to have some help with that. So we're looking at the formation of an ad hoc committee that can help to organize this event.
So I see, let's go to Sid and then to Bill.
I would like to be on that committee, and I've put together pretty big events before for the Women's Council of Realtors with the 9 Bay Area County chapters, and we did a bay cruise with 700 attendees. So I've organized special events before, and I'd be happy to help Clemens. I just need to know what the budget would be for something like that.
Bay cruise is,
No.
I hadn't thought about a bay cruise.
No, I was just saying I have experience, and that was what I.
Okay,
Maybe we can hold it at the yacht club.
hang on. So Bill, Bill's
I
next.
just wanted to also volunteer for that, there's no point in going into my expertise now, it's nothing like that.
So I mean, with the budget, we can actually have the discussion right now and see what we should plug into the budget. We usually try to keep this, these costs
Low-key.
as low as possible.
So
The
by,
big question is going to be where
Yeah.
and what does this venue cost?
Yeah.
In the district, the possibilities are extremely limited. I just, was looking for an alternative to this meeting room for the board, and was not successful in locating any room that would be suitable for regular board meetings. But a one-time event is somewhat different. So, finding something that could be utilized. Unfortunately, I don't think the lighthouse is, we used the lighthouse in the past.
Yeah.
I see you, Greg.
Unfortunately, we're going to ask the question, but I'm afraid I know the answer already.
okay. Well, we'll go to Catherine, then to Greg, then I've got something.
Okay, a couple things. I am a member of the yacht club. I will be happy to ask them, but we need to secure the date quickly because it gets used a lot. Summertime, it should be around the actual anniversary, so that was
September.
September.
The other is I was talking to Crystal at COSA Chamber, and she said, please keep her in touch, stay in touch with her because she will put it out on the chamber calendar and help get out notes to notify people of this.
Once we have a venue.
Just the floor. Okay, so I just wanted to throw out a couple of wacky ideas. The last time we had at the lighthouse, and that was very nice. It was largely outdoors. There was a little bit of indoor stuff, but it was largely an outdoor event. In September, we have often had street fairs, and there's been a pretty successful annual street fair in Montara. It occurs to me that, if we wanted to have something in Moss Beach, there's a nice little street in front of there's a park, but there's also a street in front of the wine club and post
Harvard
office.
Avenue? Harvard Avenue in the Princeton?
No,
What
in Moss
wine
Beach.
club? Oh,
Moss
wine
Beach.
room. Okay.
Wine room, sorry.
I know.
So I'm not suggesting any one of these as a thing to do, but more as in terms of venue, an outdoor event, maybe a block party kind of thing. And it might also be, if we teamed up with people, like the annual street fair here in Montara has a lively assortment of people who are setting up booths and such. It might make it a fun event. So it's something I'd like us to at least consider. And I can't imagine that Lake would be upset to have like an anchor, for, kind of a big sponsor for that thing. So I don't know. It's just a thought. Catherine?
Yeah, I'd like to see Sam invited and involved so they could have a table. Maybe we could even have them bring the sewer pipe that has the holes.
Catherine, could you lean forward to the microphone, please?
Yeah, can you
Microphone.
You
Oh,
can't hear.
I'm sorry. Was saying we should have Sam, and maybe we could bring a chunk of the sewer pipe that has the holes in it, so people can see what 50 years of
Service.
service does to ductile iron pipes, and why we need to change them. So there's that, and I think there's I'd like to see a list of all the board members from day one. I'd love to have that started for the community in any event. And perhaps a timeline of our history going back 65 years. We have some historic stuff. I have a couple boxes of newspapers from that Paul left me, and I have been going through those and cutting out articles about MWSD or SAM. So we can certainly scan those and make those available. I'd also like to see us doing maybe a segment on our website with stuff on the history. People don't realize that 20 years ago we made worldwide history. We were in international papers and magazines. We beat, I believe it was the 75th largest either corporation or utility corporation in the world, RWE. We need to celebrate the people who got us in a position that we could even do that. That would be Quentin Kopp, and it would be Gary Warhoftig, and
Peter and Jim.
Peter and Jim, you'll be there, right? And thank you, Alan Hafner. Because those people.
And then we're still missing one board member.
Okay.
That is me.
And we need kind of our own little Mount Rushmore of the foundation. But anyway, there's so much history, and I was talking to a woman from the Coastside History Association, and so this is for everybody who's watching. If you have any historic information about Montara and about the water and sewer district, it would be nice to get a place for it. And I certainly have some pictures I can scan, and we can put up that show Montara in 1920, for instance, so we can see where this community, because this little district is really the heart and an essential element of a community that's our water and public health.
I'm going to go to Greg now, and then to Allison, and then Bill, I see your hand too.
Just to piggyback on Catherine's comment before I make mine, Barbara Dye has a wealth of historical information, has given presentations at the MCC about the history. I would touch base with her, and I bet she would be able to support materials. I wanted to just point out that our new supervisor has made a point of stressing his connection to the coast side. He's opening an office in Harbor Village that we're going to consider using as an MCC meeting space. It's much bigger than your office. It would have the advantage, if an event were held there, of allowing people to wander up and down the mall and go to restaurants and bars. And there's also a ton of parking, available near Harbor Village. I don't know whether Ray would consider helping defray costs or whatever, but just as a strategy to give him an opportunity to be more visible and involved, you might get something out of that.
Put it on the list and think it through. Allison, you had your hand up?
Yeah, I was just gonna just confirm you can hear me, right?
Yes.
Yeah. Can you can, okay. I just wanted to say, I mean, I do think Catherine hit on this a little bit. If you all recall, before COVID hit, before pandemic, we were planning to do an actual system tour, starting at the district office and going up to Alta Tank and driving past some sites. So just a reminder that we had all that prepared. But in addition, wherever I would love to encourage the thought of connecting people with your facilities and your needs. We certainly talked about bringing different pieces of pipe. Catherine mentioned the one sewer pipe, but in addition, we had talked about bringing water pipes of different sizes, etc. So I think there's some great mobile ideas, some tactile things that we can bring out. The district can to just demonstrate that what's actually in the ground. And I did want to mention, I know at one point I thought, I think it's when you did Alta Tank that you had an event up there. So that was another opportunity a bit further away, but certainly some thoughts there. So I think it's great. It'll be a fantastic opportunity to sort of bring people back to what they rely on every day. So just some thoughts.
All right, Bill.
I love what Catherine says because it brought a completely new thread into our discussion of how to celebrate an anniversary, sort of a one-time shindig of some kind. And that is how to aggregate the history of this magical little place, including this map from, 1900 or something, and it's 12 feet long. There are some amazing things. You listed some of them. There are more here. It would be nice to have a place to put them all together, and it would be even nicer if that place were in this building, so that we could give it a dry spot. Community people who have things or want to trade notes or share each other's artifacts or organize them or something could all meet in a dry room and not have to do it on each other's kitchen tables. So if there's a space in this building, I think we could absolutely catalyze that process by giving a little of that space to help it happen.
Okay, so as far as the committee goes, we have 2 volunteers. Anyone want to thumb wrestle for that, or are we good with that? Okay, so you 2 are our ad hoc committee.
Okay, I have a question about it.
Yes, Sid.
Sponsorships, are we to solicit for some or not? Because I mean, that's how you can get things paid for sometimes. I'm just saying.
I'm looking at Christine on this one.
What? No.
Well, hang on. Don't go for the easy yes no. We need to chew on it.
Okay.
Clemens.
Well, I'm going to ask Christine the same question because I don't. Why not sponsors?
Did you say why not?
Yeah, why not?
Yeah.
Why not? That's what I'm asking.
Christine, is this a possibility?
We can't hear you, Christine.
Oh, I'm not speaking yet. I wasn't speaking yet.
I thought you were talking.
No.
Shaking her head.
I was absorbing. Yeah, the issue is really the gifts to the public agency, and we just have to be a little bit careful. And I absolutely could just take a quick peek at the laws with regard to that, and I can get back to Clemens and just see what type of limitations there may be on sponsorships to public agencies.
Right. I think there may be some limits, but it's not like this is a gift to a person.
Right.
That's
Correct.
why I think that would be doable.
Yep.
So what I was thinking.
And I would go further. If there was something like a street fair and we were participating in the street fair, then there would be expenses just for the larger gathering as well. So I suspect there's, depending on how we want to go with this, how we position it may influence what we can bring to bear.
So what I was thinking on the way of sponsorship, when you mentioned having it on Carlos Street in front of the wine room, hey, they could probably find us a good deal on some wine. And I don't know. What are you saying? You can't have wine at an event?
Well,
We can't pay.
Well, they could be open and have it. I'm just saying. Yeah.
so please stay in close touch with Clemens and Christine on matters of propriety. We're going to have a lot of ideas. Some of them are going to sound fun, but may not be great for a public agency.
Exactly.
And as a reminder, our 60th year anniversary celebration is only 5 years ago. So we actually do have quite a bit of history, documents that we went through and prepared for that celebration that we can pull out again, of course.
Yeah, Bill.
If I could just have at some point Christine offer officially what are the rules regarding alcohol? Because I've heard this happen about 3 times, and I know Montara likes to party, so the sooner we know what we can or can't do regarding alcohol, the better.
I can tell
Absolutely, Director Softy.
I can tell you right now that on the district premises, alcohol is not allowed.
Okay.
Yeah.
When the Harbor District hosted Coastal Commission staff and commissioners and the public, the Harbor District could not pay for the wine for the event.
Right.
Expending public funds on the wine for the event, they were donated by
The kind of thing.
That's what sponsoring is. Yeah, donations. Okay.
But the other thing is, I'd like in the future for us to have tables at street fairs, but this is our anniversary, and I want us to be the center of attention.
Sure. Yeah.
It's us, so we can give people little plastic cups with our water in it for their beverage. Or no, paper cups, recyclable cups. And that's the other thing we should talk to Recology, because they are our recycling and they are the sanitation side of our sanitary district. And Chris Porter has been wonderful to work with in the past. And so she's one of the first people who should be called.
Okay.
Okay. Let's ask that you bring back something at our next meeting. Just let us know what you're thinking, how it's going, and get that heartbeat going. And just a reminder that it's an ad hoc committee. If there's more than the 2 of you, and you need to communicate to the rest of the board, take it through staff, and Clemens and Christine can make sure that that's appropriate. But at a board meeting, we can have a wider ranging discussion.
So I just have 2 questions. Date, we didn't pick it yet, and if Catherine's going to research the Yacht Club, we would need her to do that outreach since we're not members. But we need a date.
So September is the opening play, and then maybe you can help us narrow down a date.
Okay.
But hey, that's part of the planning, right? So let's not use the board meeting to go pick a date.
Right. Okay. September. Got it.
Start with it a little wide open, and then narrow it down.
See what's available that month.
Yep. And then you'll have ideas. Come running back by us. We'll be back in a couple of weeks. So
Sure.
okay.
The Mavericks Event Center may be another option. The Mavericks Event Center,
Yes.
one that is located right there,
Yes.
close to the yacht club.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Now let's go to new business 3. Review and possible action concerning transition from at-large to by division based elections.
Yeah, thanks, Scott. So we are required to transition to from current at-large to such a district election system, and we're holding the first public hearing on April 20th, our next board meeting. And there's essentially going to be a series of public hearings that first provide information. So the first 2 public hearings are providing information about the district process and its laws, description of the data and mapping tools, and ways to communicate, etc. So that's where elected officials and the public can provide input on where essentially where we go with this process. And then there is going to be a series of essentially map suggestions, map hearings. And then we're having 2 post-map hearings to finish essentially the process up. So again, the information about the process, what we're doing, how this all works, will be brought to this board at the next board meeting on April 20th. So this is really just a heads up on this process is starting right now, and our first meeting with where we have this as a topic up is going to be on April 20th.
Okay.
And we have the dates published, so hopefully, these are all board meeting dates that are going to be very important.
Sid?
Will that first meeting have the demographer, or we're just spitballing at that meeting ourselves?
No, there's going to be somebody from the demographic firm that we hired
Thanks.
available.
So this is it's going to be an eventful year, and this is going to move pretty quick. And just to note, according to the schedule, August 17th we'll be adopting the map. So that's going to be here before you know it. So when it happens, don't be surprised. It's going to be quick, but we're going to have, how many meetings is that? Looks like 8 meetings. So you'll be hearing about this pretty much something about every meeting, almost every meeting between here and August 17th.
And maybe also to Sid's question, the law is very precise on how the process has to look like. So we will be guided by redistricting partners, by professionals through this process. So they're going to hold our hand until August 17th.
Okay, I'll just say, we spent some time with the demographer early on, and with what we saw, I was pretty satisfied with the expertise and the insight, the understanding of the law and what other agencies have been through and what kind of room we might have to operate or lack thereof. And I found it. I'll just say now, this process is very frustrating to me because it's hard enough, as you know, to get people to stand for these positions, and breaking it down into 5 different regions is going to be, it's just going to make it more interesting. But, reminder, it's up to us in the community to raise interest and draw more people in, and we just need to keep doing that all the time. And so, I hope we can look at things like our big event as yet another opportunity to help people learn about and appreciate what's going on and how they can help. Maybe we can be thinking about how to draw people in, maybe in the preparation for this event, to find some people who are interested in helping draw attention to the agency. And you never know, maybe we'll meet somebody. So look for the opportunities. Bill?
That is such a cool point that I want to mention an idea that comes to mind. We were just talking about budgeting for our 20th/65th anniversary, and there's a certain amount of money. But if we imagine how much money is at stake should the process of governance fail, should we not be able to have candidates or not have our board actually work the way it's supposed to, all of a sudden the stakes are much higher than merely a partner. So we might consider, in some sort of abstract budgetary universe, not as a particular line item, I consider that part of our public outreach budget is being set by the requirement to have this level of involvement. So it's basically trying to approximately put a number on the statement we just made.
Okay. Let me get back to the top of the agenda. Let's see. All right. Next up, reports. Sewer Authority McDo side.
You can speak into the microphone.
The major discussion was about how we're going to get this pipeline fixed. And it was the original, there were in terms of responses to the request for proposal, there were 10 firms that were contacted. and only one responded with a bid. That bid for the initial work was about $380,000, which both Granada and Montara were reluctantly supporting because we want to see this get done. Half Moon Bay took its approach that we can't pass anything without at least one vote from Half Moon Bay. And so we arrived at half of that price, $180,000, for some of the preliminary work. So that is getting started, and it will be on the future agendas. I highly recommend reading the article that was in the review. I thought it was fairly well done, and I thought they'd done a good job. But this is something that is going to be a major budget item coming up, and we mustn't forget that we had hired Dan Child at pre-COVID, and he had said that the entire system at the plant, not counting what needs to be done on this pipeline segment, will cost, to improve it and bring it up to 2023 standards, $30 to $50 million, because we have major electrical issues and other things. Now the plant has been, under Keeshan's able leadership, has been able to make some of those investments as in the last few years, but it's still going to be a lot of money. So we need to be keeping an eye on that.
Sid?
I just wanted to ask you, because I watched the meeting video, and Deborah Ruddock brought up something about it needed an EIR. And also, I just wanted to state my opinion, and that is that things don't get cheaper over time. And the fact that they kick the can down the road means it's going to cost more just because next year's prices won't be this year's prices. But can you talk about the EIR part that she was mentioning?
Sure. First of all, I've been saying that since I first sat on this board in 1996, and the other thing that not getting things done is not only does the cost go up, but the ancillary problems, the related problems also come up, and they cost more too. As far as an EIR, the city council person Ruddock was acting as if it was going to be done in Half Moon Bay. And I took the opportunity to mention that this is a project entirely in the county. And so I have asked staff and consultants to go to the county, and if we do it in the same location, in the same pipe sizes, if we can't just do it with a neg deck, because we're not breaking a negative declaration.
Wait, it only takes one.
It says that there are no substantial changes coming that would have any environmental impact. And it saves lots of money and time. So it saves time, and it saves money squared.
So she gave him up.
So hopefully we will be able to get that done.
And does SRT take care of that, or
SRT
Okay.
has very good relationships with the county and with the county planners.
Yay.
And we may want to, those of us who know Ray Mueller, ask him to get involved with planning so that we do get the county to say, yes, if you make no changes in neg deck, would be a good thing. That's something the board can do because it's a political thing and that's our jobs.
Thank you, Catherine.
There are definitely things that could make a neg deck hard to get. For example, in the past, there's been discussion about, hey, what if we have 2 pipelines instead of 1? That way, if anything happens to one, we've got the other. Right. But it also doubles your ability to deliver flow, so that increases the capacity, and that it immediately takes neg deck off the table. We've had some tremendous success doing projects with negative declarations. I believe we did a neg deck when Sam put the tank here back into service. When we did the first wet weather retention project in the El Granada in the Burnham Strip, I think we were able to do a neg deck for the second phase of that as well. And then we've had experience with a number of projects which are pretty much straight up repairs, taking things that have broken or worn out and putting them back to good working order. And I believe that's well within the spirit of what negative declarations are all about. And it has saved us very serious time, months and months and months, and lots of money, because all of that time is going to wind up in larger cost. And if you can't do a negative declaration, then you typically have to do much more environmental work to estimate things like, what would it impact? And then you have to mitigate to stay away from the things you would impact. It just gets really hard. So when people want to take the opportunity to open up this project and do it right this time, it's like, no, the right thing is get it back in working order as quickly as we can, because we're under tremendous pressure from the regulators and our budget and our neighbor's budget. I mean, it hits us all.
So just to that point, it's better to use like for like pipes than to have to expand the pipe to a bigger size, right?
In terms of size, yes, but materials, we would have to, the only thing we can do is use the state of the art
Right.
for current engineering.
But that wouldn't trigger a EIR. The neg deck would be if you were trying to just repair, like you said.
If you change capacity,
Yeah.
that makes it much harder to say, oh, it's just a repair.
Okay.
Right. So it takes some. Well, I'll just say this: I had a furnace that failed, and I looked at doing it right and putting in the system I really wanted to put in, and I got a quote on that, and it was 10 times what it would take me to do a like for like. A like for like replacement happened today. It got done in 1 day at a reasonable price, and I don't have the fancier, nicer, more fuel efficient system that I wanted, but it's done at a very good price, and done at a very good price is kind of at the end of the day what we're looking for. So,
Right. Thank you.
yeah. All right. So, how about Midcoast Community Council? Greg, do you have anything for us?
Yeah, I've got probably more than you want, Scott. I want to piggyback on the SAM report and point out that for over a year, I had been pursuing a study of the causes of the overflow at SAM plant on December 13th and 14th, 2021. Then it happened again this December 31st. So a few meetings back, I asked for a report and an analysis of the causes. Nothing was forthcoming from SAM. So I got the MCC to write a letter requesting a visible discussion, a public debate on the need for a study to analyze the causes. And there was discussion that we would get such a study out of SAM. There was a little bit of debate about the scope, and they were supposed to come back with a recommendation for the scope. What ended up coming out of that was only a $25,000 study, if I remember correctly, to study the water hammer. So I don't know what went on behind the scenes to limit this analysis from a complete understanding of the causes of the overflows at the SAM plant down to the water hammer. But my request of your board is that you continue to watch, and I know you will, what SAM is doing and not doing about not understanding it. The staff report that documented the discussion a few meetings back was quite clear about all the problems that had happened. I also passed on, I believe, to some of you that Half Moon Bay is doing what's called a geomorphology study, if I'm using the word right, which sounds to me like somebody down there is finally realizing they have a stormwater problem and is going to be studying it. So I view that as good news, pending, what comes out of that. Now, on to routine stuff. The MCC should have 7 members on April 12th. We are going to take Ann Rothman and add her, I hope, as well as Kimberly Williams. And so finally, we'll have 7 people. I also think I sent most of you an analysis I got. Was it from Becker or Berman's chief of staff? I've talked to both of them. There are now 5 bills pending in the state that will strengthen and improve the Brown Act for remote meetings. I'm pleased to see that Becker's draft includes the language I wanted about immunocompromised family members not having, people with immunocompromised family members not having to attend. So I wonder if you would be interested in writing in support of those 2 bills, as I hope the MCC will at its next meeting. Third, we have a report on communications vulnerabilities on the Mid-Coast. There have been a series of meetings which have not been publicized as far as I know, and I certainly do not have a written set of details on what's going on, involving Caltrans, Berman, Becker, SU, cell companies, Caltrans, etc., and the need to increase redundancy of our coastside infrastructure, the debate over extra fiber cable through the tunnel to the north. I can't tell you right now that what they are doing is actually adequate. We have a 40-page report and a 50-slide show. Plenty of vulnerabilities, including lack of battery backup, lack of backup generators, inadequate placement, both cell and internet services. And where we would like to look is for a community fiber network. It turns out there are 500 or more of these things that have been formed in the country in the last few years, that over 80% of the landmass in North Dakota and 50% of the landmass in South Dakota is based on community fiber cooperatives. It's not just Atherton and Los Altos that have 1 gigabit fiber optic internet. So I wonder, and I'm exploring SAM also because they have concerns about their connectivity and their internet capabilities, which I'll spare you the details on. Just think about whether or not Montara Water and Sanitary District would be interested in being a user of a more reliable, higher speed telecommunications system. I also wonder if you guys would consider supporting our report and adding your concerns to it so we can take it forward to all the people I just mentioned, elected officials up to the state. New topic, stormwater. I thought it was pretty obvious that we had a stormwater problem on the Mid-Coast. I actually have received pushback from county officials on this. So we're going to be doing a report. I would request that you individually and collectively, if you have concerns about stormwater and flooding on the Mid-Coast and drainage, that you contribute your comments, send them to the MCC. I will be posting something on Nextdoor. We really want to try and get a study of stormwater capacity and required solutions in our area. When I wrote Public Works on December 6th last year, I asked who's in charge and where's the assessment of our capacity, and the answer was there's nobody in charge, the position hasn't been filled, and there is no capacity assessment. So we're trying to target that after the communications issue is our next report, and I look forward to anything that MWSD would care to contribute about your concerns about what better stormwater drainage might mean to you and I and so forth. And then finally, you're aware that Ray has titled this CRISP initiative, Coastside Resilient Infrastructure Strategic Plan. One of the other topics that's going to be coming up is education. We're going to have a meeting with Cabrillo schools at the MCC. There are funding issues in our school systems. I view that as an essential part of our infrastructure, and I expect that we will be producing a report on that, working with Cabrillo, as I have already met with Sheila and Sean with Federich, and that's it.
Thank you, Greg. Catherine?
Although this is not typical, I did want to talk on your first point which is the examination of the flow into SIM December 31, January 1. The stormwater fellows said the researchers said they're taking the water from the meter in the bridge, under the bridge in Half Moon Bay, because that's the water that came and impacted, and that amount of water came and impacted the SAM plant and any surrounding water in the flat area surrounding SAM, the bench there, and Kehoe ditch and so on. So that's why he's not going further up to see where the water came from, because it doesn't matter whether it came from up at the
Stone Dam.
That's the
Stone Creek Dam.
Stone Pine Dam, Stone Creek
Stone Pine
Dam.
Dam, yeah.
Because there was other water coming in, and so, but that doesn't matter. It was the amount that was going under the bridge that was metered, and there's a NOAA gauge there that measures that water. So that's why he wasn't looking at other sources. I think it would be, it's of great interest to know, but really the amount coming in and the solutions for slowing it down are certain, and stopping it, and maybe other alternatives to the $50 million that it would take just to bring the sewer plant up to date. And maybe we should be talking about how much it would take to put in packaged treatment plants in various places too. So I think there are many more discussions to have on that, and I thank you for your work on the internet. Maybe one of the good things that came out of this storm was everybody lost their internet to a certain extent, and so it's going to facilitate and generate this community, which is an awesome, creative, knowledgeable community to make changes, whereas other corporations have to go through all kinds of things. And as you can see from driving around Montara and Moss Beach, we do it better when we do it ourselves.
Yeah, I just should mention that we talked to cruiseio.net, which did fiber optic in Santa Cruz. Population 60,000, cost $50 million. We got a ballpark estimate for our territory would be about $23 million. So 20 years after you guys borrowed $20 million to form your own water and sewer district, the idea that we would need $23 million to fund a robust, 1 gigabit plus communication system seemed to me to be worth continuing to pursue.
Thank you.
Okay, let's go to CSDA and MACO.
Nothing to report.
All right, attorney's report.
Thanks, President Boyd. I have two items tonight to report. As Greg mentioned, there are some bills in the legislature now pertaining to remote meetings. One of the bills is AB 557, and that bill would actually extend the previous COVID remote meeting bill, the so-called AB 361, which allowed us to have remote meetings during a state of emergency. That bill is set to sunset at the end of this year, AB 361, but AB 557 is now being presented, and that would allow the ability to have remote meetings during a state of emergency beyond 2024, so it would not sunset. The second item I wanted to apprise the board of is that the EPA is currently considering some proposed regulations that would establish some legally enforceable maximum contaminant levels for some substances known as PFAS, They're basically widely used synthetic chemicals, which break down very slowly, and exposure to these in the environment has been linked to harmful health effects in humans and animals. They can be transmitted through water. So the EPA has identified 6 of these chemicals and is currently in the process of drafting proposed regulations that would require public water systems like Montara to monitor for these chemicals, and if chemicals are exceeded, then to reduce those levels, and that will be a mandated EPA regulation. There will be a public comment period once the proposed regulations are filed in the Federal Register. So it may be that that's something we would comment on. I've advised Clemens and Tanya, so I think they'll take it from there, unless the board has any direction. That's my report.
Okay, Sid?
Do we already test for those, Clemens? Do you know if we have them in our water system already?
No, no water system is testing. There's no requirement for it. We know PFAS are very common. Polyfluor aromatic substances are very common. It's essentially Teflon and Gore-Tex. Now, we do have an advantage here, and that is our mountain water, Montara mountain water. I hope we are one of the agencies that are getting away without having substance. At least in the Alta Vista and other higher sources. So.
Thank you.
And to Christine's point, so once the EPA sets the regulations, we understand now what we need to do, and we follow accordingly. And the state is in charge of overseeing that we are following this process.
Thanks.
Mm-hmm. All right, director's reports. I have one. It was interesting. I was taking the day off today, and I was home with the guy who was installing the new furnace. And lo and behold, a couple of white pickup trucks pulled up outside, and a couple of orange shirted guys got out and started looking around for the water meter, and I happened to know where it was, so I pointed and chatted for a bit. When we took the water system almost 20 years ago, almost right away, we were approached by an organization that suggested some ways for us to invest a little money and save more. And one of the things that we did was we added radio read water meters. And it used to be, at the start of our time with the water system, we would take 2 crew members and they would walk Montara 1 month and walk Moss Beach the next month, pulling lids, cleaning off meters, and reading the meters. And it was a 2-person operation, and they were always in the street, and it was kind of not exactly an optimal way to use really talented people. And so having the radio meters has been a real boon, but they have batteries, and those batteries eventually wear out. And so they've been finding the ones where the batteries are going or have already gone. Mine was already gone. And they did all the work to pull it out and put a new one in and record all the numbers. So that was fun to watch and good to see. And it is a reminder that when we put things in the ground, sooner or later we're going to have to touch it again, probably to fix it or replace it. And that's right and proper. And we got a pretty good run out of these things. I think longer than what we thought they were rated at, but not forever. So. And apparently, Clemens, you mentioned to me a while back that we were having trouble getting inventory to do the replacements. It looks like you've found some, at least.
Yeah, we were a year and a half backlogged on the order, and unfortunately, that bottleneck opened up, and all of a sudden we are actually we got a huge shipment of the battery transmitter units, and are able to plug them in now. Yes, so that's going to help on saving time on the metering, because a lot of these, not a lot, but around 150, 200 per each site for Montara and Lost Beach were failing in the recent year or 2 years, and now we can replace those and get ahead of it and not required to read them manually.
Yeah.
Which is the alternative.
Sid?
Well, if they were failing, how did you actually have to send live humans out to do the readings?
Yes.
And so I know my meter is pretty hidden in the bushes now, because I thought it was always just transmitting. And one time they came and the gophers had completely filled it with dirt. The basin that this thing sits in.
They all look
Yes.
that way, I think.
I helped the guys locate a meter today that is under pavement now. So
Ooh.
this is something that we always see. It disappears in the landscaping. This one is under paving.
So
So
you just need to replace the batteries, not replace the whole gadget. Is that my understanding? And then do they need to be recalibrated like sometime annually or every 6 years or not?
no.
Okay.
I think essentially we're going to get another run out of them. So basically, in another 10 years, we will have to replace the actual hardware component, the displacement meter itself.
Okay.
They tend to wear out very slowly, but it was a good thing that we changed them out at the beginning of the essentially the ownership with Montara. And so we're confident we get another good 10 years or so out of these meters before we have to switch systems.
Well, I just got to say, it was unexpected. It was a delight to talk to them, watch them work, and even better, I watched them interact with other folks in the community who they know well, and it was fun to watch. And I was just, it was good. It was a great way to use a day off, get a new furnace, and see the crew in action. So I wanted to commend them and let you know I was excited to see it.
Thank you. Glad to hear it.
Okay, General Manager's report.
No report.
Okay, so we are at the end of the public agenda. We are going to take a brief recess. We're going to bid a fond farewell to our PCT helper tonight, and we're going to, in closed session, we've got a few items on the agenda. We've got conference with legal counsel, existing litigation on the Half Moon Bay suing its neighbors matter. Then we've got 3 potential cases of initiation of litigation under the anticipated litigation clause. Public employee performance evaluation and conference with labor negotiators with reference to our general manager. And then conference with real property negotiators for the property 771 Rivera Road here in Montara. If we take any action, we'll report that out afterwards. And I'd like to thank everyone for coming. We are now in recess.